Taoiseach, Deputy Catherine Murphy, please.
Thank you. Taoiseach, people around the country I think are deeply concerned today. They're worried about the impact of the virus on their health, on their jobs, on their children's education, and on their communities. They wonder if the small measure of normality that had returned in recent weeks is being snatched away, and if so, for how long. They're deeply concerned about the ability of our overburdened healthcare system to cope with the onslaught of cases. They wonder why, given the scale of the crisis in our hospitals, the HSE has yet to deliver the 350 hospital beds that were promised in ICU. Taoiseach, people are losing faith in the government's ability to manage the response to the pandemic. They're concerned about the indecision and the delay in the government's response. Antigen testing has been promised for months, but it's still yet to materialise. Ventilation has never been a priority, despite this being an airborne disease, and ventilation being among the best weapons in the fight to the suppression of its transmission. The rollout of boosters has been painfully slow, with little clarity on timelines for the various cohorts and when they'll receive it. Taoiseach, at the start of the crisis, Mike Ryan from the World Health Organization gave some sage advice. He said, speed trumps perfection. Perfection is the enemy of the good when it comes to emergency responses. That lesson seems to have been lost. Simple and effective measures like antigen testing at schools have not yet been rolled out. The overwhelming evidence that boosters would be required as part of the mitigation strategy has not been acted upon swiftly. Taoiseach, you and your government have consistently highlighted personal responsibility and said that the onus is on people to limit their contacts and act responsibly, and that is certainly true. But you consistently downplay the state's responsibility to manage the overarching response. Individuals cannot authorise antigen testing in schools or organise subsidies for antigen testing or institute a nationwide booster campaign. Individuals can't mandate vaccination guidelines for workplaces or air purification systems in schools. Individuals can't deliver additional hospital beds. Individuals can't reintroduce the PUP payment for those who are likely to lose their jobs or even on a temporary basis. All of this work must be done by government, and the government has been really sadly lacking and has really taken the eye off the ball. I have a number of questions I want to ask you, Taoiseach. When will the booster campaign be scaled up, and will you give specific dates as to when each cohort will be dealt with? Why is it taking so long to roll out the antigen testing, which is really a no-brainer? You failed to prioritise ventilation. When will you redress that? And in relation to the PUP payment, will you reintroduce it for people who are losing their jobs?
Thank you, Deputy Murphy. Taoiseach, please.
First of all, I would disagree with the Deputy's analysis of the country and the government's performance in relation to COVID-19 since the onset of the pandemic. And certainly, I just instance one key. The vaccination programme was one of the most successful across the world in terms of speed, efficiency and effectiveness. Now we're at about 90% over 12-year-olds fully vaccinated. That's no mean achievement, and that's a tribute to all the public, to the robust debate within public media, and to those both within officialdom and outside of officialdom who's offered opinions. In terms of, we've reopened the economy quite substantively since March onwards, with a bounce back in the economy, which has brought thousands of people back into work. That's a positive. And by our supports, I mean, the EWIS supporting companies in terms of the wage subsidy schemes, the CRIS, the rates relief, the variety of other supports that we provided, the warehousing of tax for businesses, has meant we've kept thousands of businesses viable, so that when we did reopen, they could start at from a reasonable platform. That's something that should not be underestimated. And if you talk to people, they will acknowledge that out there. And that economic platform was very significant. And we took a decision to borrow to underpin the economy in the midst of a 1 in 100 year event, which has borne fruit. But that said, there has been a cost to reopening. And when you create the opportunity for socialisation, you will get opportunities for the virus to spread, and particularly a transmissible variant of that virus, which is the Delta variant. So there's a balance here all of the time. And so the government has taken decisions. And in terms of the booster programme, again, NIAC advises, I'm sure you accept that, you've always accepted that from the outset, that the public health advise in relation to the utilisation of vaccines, and particularly the booster vaccination. And the timelines, there's been various timelines at which that advice has been given to the HSE in relation to the booster campaign. Residents at long-term care facilities aged 65 and older, the estimated cohort size about 30,000. The booster start date was the 4th of the 10th. The end date for cohort eligibility is actually March of 22, because you have to factor in the 5-month, 6-month interval in relation to the application of that. End October is the expected substantial completion date for that group. Residents of LTCF age under 65, early mid-December. There's about 18,000 in that. Healthcare workers under 60 years of age, including LTCVF, end of December for that entire cohort of about 305,000. Those aged 80 years and older, again, it's a cohort size of about 161,000. Again, mid-November, substantial completion date, because some will not be eligible for until about March of 22. And then 70 to 79, you're looking at end November, early December, substantially completed. And then 60 to 69, you're looking at the end of December. They will now operationalise the 50 to 59 because they just got that advice last evening, plus further advice in relation to very high risk and the 4 and 7 of the immuno and those with underlying conditions.
Deputy Murphy.
Look, there is no doubt the vaccination programme was a really good success, but we now know it requires 3 stages. I'm hearing from people in their 70s that are asking me when are they likely to even get a notification of a date. Have you consulted the GPs on their ability to deliver that? The GPs are very busy at the moment, so lots of things circulating in the community. Have the ability to do it? If not, can people be directed to vaccination centres? There's a real problem with people who got AstraZeneca, particularly in the people I'm hearing from in the 60 age cohort, because there was a 12-week, in some cases, gap between one and the next, and in some cases won't have 6 months. They won't have received their second vaccination until the end of until August in some cases. We seem to be going from wave to wave, and certainly the economy has been reopened, but some of it has been closed down again. What's going to happen to people this weekend who are going to be worried about losing their job? Today the PUP payment has been reduced. People won't be able to re-enter onto it. That simply is something that has to be addressed. There are just the like of NIAC has been very slow to respond, including to healthcare workers where there was 1,800 out sick or self-isolating. There needs to be a greater speed in terms of the advice given when all the evidence elsewhere is showing that there needs to be a booster programme quickly delivered.
Well, in fairness, I just outlined for you the timelines that you asked me for in respect of the booster programme, and those 4 and 7 and all people aged 50 to 59-year-olds. Like, if you add it all up now, those who are now eligible in accordance with NIAC advice, and this is information from the HSE, is about 2.197, maybe 2.2 million, roughly, okay? But there's timelines then in terms of when people got their second dose, which would be a key factor. So it's not as simple as the first and second doses in terms of how they were administered, particularly the first doses. And the original initiation of the primary vaccination programme. But GPs, pharmacies, vac centres will be used in respect of the booster vaccination programme. And in terms of antigen testing, agreement is between the Departments of Health and Education in respect of the antigen testing protocols, very close to completion now. Again, the big issue that came last evening in the presentation, and the biggest concern we have really is the HSE is because of non-COVID respiratory illness, particularly in paediatrics. That's the most dominant issue in healthcare in terms of admissions to hospitals, actually has been RSV and non-COVID in respect of children now.
Thank you, Taoiseach.
And I'm always surprised in the public debate that there hasn't been as much focus on that, and that is a very significant issue
Thank you very
for
much.
parents and children.